Hello, everybody. My name is Connor. Welcome to one of my live streams. I'm going to be talking about three movies I saw recently, and I'm going to be talking about them in the order that I saw them. The first one I'm going to talk about is Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. The second one will be Star Wars The Last Jedi, and then the third one is going to be The Shape of Water, each of which are directed by named directors. Martin McDonagh directed Three Billboards. He directed In Bruges and Seven Psychopaths. This is his third feature, I believe. And then Rian Johnson directed the new Star Wars film. He, of course, directed Looper, Brick, The Brothers Bloom, and 3 episodes of Breaking Bad, I believe. And Guillermo del Toro, who is, of course, Guillermo del Toro, directed Shape of Water. So I guess Merry Christmas. This is probably the last video I'm going to do before Christmas in 2017. So Merry Christmas. So I guess without any further ado, I'll just get into it. I think that I'll start, as I said before, with Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And oh, I should probably say, full spoilers for every movie that I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to go full spoilers. Retroactively, I'll put timestamps in the description. And then I'll just give you my number ratings up front about all 3 of these movies. And I must say, is like a lot. I'm probably going to give Three Billboards an 8.5 out of 10. I'm going to give Jedi either an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. And then I'm going to give Shape of Water an 8 out of 10. I was really impressed with this, and I must say that this year has been pretty exceptional for movies, not just for, I mean, compared to last year, it's a dream come true, but I like it more than 2015, and I think that it's the best year of movies we've had since 2014, which was also great. So this time around, though, this has also been a pretty exceptional year for genre pictures. I think with stuff like Logan and Blade Runner and Baby Driver and John Wick Chapter 2 and Lego Batman and Spider-Man Homecoming and Get Out. And there's just been a lot of really good, exceptional genre movies that it's pretty nice. I liked 2015 pretty good, but the genre movies were pretty standard that year. We got a lot of really good like dramas and normal movies. So I guess I'll get going into Three Billboards. Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri is both written and directed by Martin McDonagh, and it tells the story of Frances McDormand plays a woman. Ebbing, Missouri is a very small town, and she sees 3 billboards outside on a back road near her house. It is on her commute to and from work, and her daughter has recently been raped and murdered, and she been no arrests, and I think the 8 or 10 months since the incident, and so she is trying to get a lot of attention on this case so it can get solved and they can figure something out. And so she rents out 3 billboards for an entire year to call out the local police. So, as I said, I give this movie an 8.5. I really enjoy it. Also, here are Woody Harrelson as the chief of police. There's Sam Rockwell as one of his deputies. Caleb Landry Jones, because he just decided he wanted to be in everything this year. He plays the person who owns the billboard company. And the thing that I like the most about this movie is I really think that Martin McDonagh has a knack for dialogue. I'm probably the last person to get on this train, but I haven't seen In Bruges. I haven't seen Seven Psychopaths. I remember when both of those came out. I remember a lot of people really liking them. In Bruges is a movie I hear a lot of people recommending to me quite regularly. And I do want to go back and check out his stuff. I really like the dialogue here. It's really vulgar, but it never feels gratuitous. These people are all angry and they're all mean to each other, and they're cursing at each other every other word. But it never feels gratuitous. It feels like it's in these characters' vernacular, and there's a sense of place. It's such a small community and small town, so all these people know each other, so it's almost like everyone sort of knows each other's quirks, and maybe some like secrets you're trying to hold on to aren't exactly well kept in this society. So it's almost like making fun of your cousin or something. And I quite enjoyed that aspect of it, and as a result, this movie is really about like the anger people have and vengeance, people's like need for vengeance, and there's uh, this movie is about angry people, but it's also once you get to the ending, it's about the choice you make every day and every moment of your life. You're trying to make a choice between whether you want to do the right thing or you want to do the bad thing. And what is the right thing? What is the bad thing? There's justice and then there's revenge, and every day's a choice. People aren't just all good and they're all just all bad. There are choices you make that make you a good person, that do make you a bad person. So that's really neat. And I think that throughout a lot of this movie opens up and everyone's mean and everyone's angry to each other. There's a lot of yelling. I guess one of my criticisms is a lot of the beginning of this movie is a character will walk into a location and then this character will just start yelling at somebody, and they'll just kind of yell at each other and talk at each other for a while, and then a character will leave. And then the next scene will start, and someone will walk into a location, and they start yelling at each other. So it got a little repetitive, got a little samey. Uh, and I understand the concept behind this. We are trying to establish a form of like a connection between all these characters. They're all angry, they're all bitter, they all have something in their life that isn't complete. And one thing that does elevate this though is the performances. These are characters who are fully inhabited by their actors. Frances McDormand is exceptional because she is Frances McDormand. As in the lead, Woody Harrelson gives some really good work as the police chief, and Sam Rockwell is a performance that I'm glad is getting some attention because it's a really good performance. It's a performance that you need to stay with, and it's really easy to dismiss out of hand. I remember I heard a lot of stuff about him going into this movie, and when I watched it initially, I thought they got to start talking about something about this guy, and we do eventually get there, and it was satisfying, and it did start to make sense, and I'm glad about that. Peter Dinklage is also here, and only like 2 or 3 scenes. John Hawkes. There's a lot of actors here. It's not a big sprawling cast or anything, but has a fairly decent sized cast. I think that, but within all the stuff, there's a tenderness to these characters. Woody Harrelson's character is as I mentioned, the police chief. He has cancer, and everyone sort of knows this. And there's a scene that I'm remembering right now where Frances McDormand she I think she injures the dentist, and then she's getting questioned about it. And Woody Harrelson and her are having a back and forth, and it's getting really venomous, and they're being really quicky and really snappy and really witty. And then he just all of a sudden just coughs up blood, and then immediately he's like like he almost looks like he's scared and he doesn't know what to do. And then Frances McDormand is acting like a mother to him, and beneath that rough exterior, there is this tightness and this close knit community. There's a closeness to this community, and odds with one another. There is a sense of responsibility they feel like they have to have towards one another, and it was really sweet. It was really tender, and then they all go back to being rowdy, but they care about each other's um, they care about each other's well-being, and that's a really nice curl to have in there, and especially to throw that in relatively early on, because once Woody Harrelson's character dies, like I said, spoiler alert, he when he died, I thought, oh, this movie isn't really about the billboard. That's just a catalyst to kind of as a way to get us into these characters' lives, and it's just about their lives. It ultimately does become about that story and what that. It's not about the billboards. It's not about the plot of her trying to get that. That is the inciting incident, but it is more that it does prove to be more of a linchpin than what I was kind of starting to think this was going. I was beginning to think that we were just going to get the story of these people in this small amount of time, and we do. But the billboards are a way of making these events happen, because Woody Harrelson was going to die no matter what. But the way people react to this death is spurned by choices people make before, and there's a really neat I should have written notes down for this because my mind is starting to go into a lot of different directions. But there's a really neat choice that McDonagh does here, where Woody Harrelson, we almost want to antagonize him because of how we sympathize with Frances McDormand and what we're told about the police and his kind of off his snideness and his honoriness. We want to antagonize him, but then we realize he's like the only person in this story who hasn't been reduced, because Frances McDormand, after the death of her daughter and what happens with her husband, she is somebody who has just been stripped, and she is a shell of who she used to be. And Sam Rockwell is the shell of what he can be. He's a miserable person, and there's and Woody Harrelson is the one who kind of has it all together, and he's the one who's dying, and he does seem to have this sort of knowledge and an understanding towards everybody and an empathy towards people. Like, he's the one who kind of looks out for Sam Rockwell's racist cop character and does defend him in certain defends his choice to keep him on the force from other people, and he's the one who is probably the least angry at Frances McDormand when those billboards go up. The only one who's trying to have like a civil rapport with everybody. And when he gets taken out of the picture, what happens when the person keeping the peace goes away and everyone is still angry? It's really kind of cool. And the other working title you could have gotten from this was 3 Letters by Chief Willoughby, because he does write 3 letters before he kills himself. That's because that's how he dies. He doesn't want his kids to live with the memory of him withering away, so he shoots himself after the perfect day. And that's a writing choice that could have been a little rough with the post-mortem letters. After a while, I began to wonder, like, was he the one who actually wrote these letters, or is somebody else trying to do something? It didn't go that direction, but we get the proper amount of post-mortem letters that is believable. And he does continue to be a character, and his grace does continue to inspire people. And the more and more these letters come out, the more and more people realize that he's to be a nice person, and they also have to make that same choice. And his influence doesn't just stick around. He's the good guy in the story, and we kill him off like half an hour into this movie. This movie does feel longer than it is. I thought when he died we were at the midpoint. We're not. If you're looking at the 5-point structure of a script, that's the big event. That's the second one. So moving on, I guess my other criticism is, I think that while it's a little slow to start, I think everything before Chief Willoughby's suicide is a little it's a little repetitive, and I feel like we're being told the same things in every scene. And I was like, okay, I get this, but where's this really going? And I think this could have stood to be about 10 minutes shorter, because the final dialogue exchange is between 2 people, and I really like the exchange. And it where they are makes complete sense. It is Frances McDormand, Rockwell, and they find out that there's Sam Rockwell found out that there was a person who raped and murdered a girl and burned her to death, and that the same way Frances McDormand's daughter died. And so he's like, oh crap, I think this is that person. But then it turns out to not be that person. His alibi checks out. But then he's like, that person still killed somebody. Kind of just says, I need to go and kill him. And Frances McDormand's like, yeah, me too. So they get in a car and they leave town. And while they're driving, one of, are you really sure? I don't know. And the other person says, I don't know. And the other person says, we'll decide along the way. And then it ends. And I'm like, that's a great way to end this. It's about that choice. Life is that car ride. We are on a journey and on a destination. We make the choice of what we that thing, all the way to the end. And being in that car, having it being a dialogue exchange between those 2 means something. On that journey, that did feel like I know exactly how I want this movie to end, but I do need to move some pieces to get us to there, and that's going to take some time. I could see the screenplay notes on the side, like, okay, here's how we're going to work that out. Um, I will say that I think that Sam Rockwell's character, and I talked about this earlier, um, it's really the movie is really patient with this character, and that's and it took a lot of restraint, and I really appreciated that. I mentioned earlier that I'm like, okay, we got to explain something with this guy because he is so almost like cartoonishly like bumbling. Like he's alcoholic, he's racist, and he he sees somebody and he just beats him up, and it's like, what's going on here? And I'm hearing everyone like rave about this performance. I'm like, he's just doing the same thing over and over. But I really I really wish we could like not know the hype of a movie before going in, like just even like basic reviews and like awards contender possibilities, um, because and this is probably just on my, but like I was like really getting impatient, but I needed to be patient for this. The There's a really great scene where he goes. We do this really cool thing. It's a really neat storytelling choice where the police station and the billboard office are across the street from one another, and the office window by Sam Rockwell looks right up into the office window of Caleb Landry Jones, and there's like some neat storytelling and like how one side perceives the other and how they're just looking through windows. And after Chief Willoughby is dead, Sam Rockwell looks up and he sees Caleb Landry Jones, the person who is renting out these billboards, is having a good time. And then in a really neatly stylized fashion, Sam Rockwell, who I think is drunk at this time, wanders on up there and then throws Caleb Landry Jones out of a window and then comes back down, and this basically ends his cop career. But that whole sequence was really tastefully done, or at least artistically sophisticated in how it was all put together. The song choice, it's a long tracking shot, and the way it's placed in that character's journey, it's pretty much like up to that point, his character's building and building and building to this. He's down this road. He's gonna not be a good character, but then he gets a post-mortem letter from Chief Willoughby, and it's all about love, and it's corny like that, but I like it. And it's if you want to be a detective, you got to learn to love. And so hearing that kind of fatherly advice, because that's something it's not ever spoken, but it's you can infer it, and it's he's taking care of his mother, and it's later revealed that much later that his father had gotten taken out of the picture, and so he's had to like move back, and he like resents that he still has to live with his parents and take care of his mom, and he just can't be his own man. And a lot of these details do start to inform the person, and it's sweet. That's the thing about this movie. It's so rough and angry at first, but underneath its exterior, it's a really sweet, tender, sincere movie, and I like that a lot. I do think that the John Hawkes character, who is Frances McDormand's ex-husband, um, like what I was talking about with Lady Bird, he's like the one character who's like beyond any redemption, and that does seem to be like that seems to fall outside of the film's message. And I don't get how anybody could stand to be around him because he's dating like a 19-year-old, and it's like, how can she not see how much of a jerk he is? Come on. Um, and there's really spotty CG deer at one point. So much so that I was wondering, is that deer even there, or is she just imagining that? Like it's that bad. But overall, I haven't seen this movie in a few weeks, and I wish I had maybe done this review earlier. But I think I hit my points regarding Three Billboards. It's a really great movie. And I think there are some dialogue exchanges in this movie that I'm going to remember for a while. This is one of your best turn in your gun in your badge moments I've seen in a movie in some time, and great stuff. please watch it. I think this is a movie that if you like movies, you will like this movie. It's my brother when he walked out. And by the way, my brother Spencer thought this is the best. He thinks this is the best movie of the year. He absolutely loved it. Thought it was brilliant. I'm not as high on it as him, but I did really like it a lot. And he had described this movie as Tennessee Williams by way of Quentin Tarantino. I haven't really read any Tennessee Williams, and I've not seen a whole lot of Tarantino, but that seems like a good way of putting it. Knowing the basic cliches about both of those men and both of those storytellers, it does kind of have that. Like I said, it does make me want to go see some more Martin McDonagh films, and I like that this is more than just a screenwriter's movie. It's a very intelligently directed movie. I talked about earlier, there's that sequence where Sam Rockwell throws Caleb Landry Jones out of a window, but there's later a part where the billboards catch fire, and on one side you have a billboard that's been extinguished, and there's a billboard on fire over here, and you see Frances McDormand running between them, and shots like that that really stick out. And like I said, that storytelling choice to have the two windows and then being the way each side perceives the other. And there's also just like other. Sorry, this is not very well structured, but there's this other sweet moment where Caleb Landry Jones is in the hospital because he got thrown out of a window, and then Sam Rockwell gets into a fire, and he's a burned victim, and he's in the same hotel room as Caleb Landry Jones. And there's that moment where he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and he actually does like come out and tell him that I'm the guy who threw you out a window, and Caleb Landry Jones is still nice to him and still gives him his orange juice, even though he understands this is the guy who put him in the hospital. And it's little things like that that really drive the point home. It's a very simple message, but I think it's a message that still rings true. It's a message that people, I think, maybe do need to hear, and especially like socially and politically where we are. I don't want to really get into this, but it's very volatile. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. A lot of it is a very volatile us versus them, big divide sort of situation. And this movie just has a real tender heart of, let's just make the choice to be nice to each other. And I like that a lot. Like I said, 8.5 out of 10. All right, let's get into the powdered keg that is Star Wars The Last Jedi. So I don't want to sit here and talk about stuff that is what my opinion is the right one. I don't want to sit here and go through criticisms. I'm only going to sit here and I'm going to talk about my experience watching the movie and my thoughts. I am not here to change hearts and minds. I'm only here to give my opinion on Star Wars. That's it. So before watching Star Wars The Last Jedi, I didn't care about Star Wars. I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan. They were very important films to me when I was a youngster. I was born in 1995, so naturally, pardon me, so naturally the Star Wars films, the prequel films, played a very large part in my youth. They're not good films, but I do have a connection with them. I remember being excited for them, and even when I was a kid, I mean, I never liked Attack of the Clones, but even when I was a kid, it was like the Star Wars and the worlds they presented and the imagination and the ideas on screen. It was like a great world to escape to. And even if I didn't like Attack of the Clones, it still spurned imagination in me where I could create stories in this world, and it helped me imagine stories and ideas, and they're so kind of special to me. And the original trilogy, it's great. I mean, everyone knows the original trilogy is great. The prequel trilogy is not so much. I have a bit of a connection to them, but Attack of the Clones is terrible. Phantom Menace is not much better, and Revenge of the Sith is better. It's not a terrible movie. Revenge of the Sith is just kind of mediocre. And I was really excited for in the lead up to Force Awakens. I was mostly worried because I felt like we had 3 good Star Wars movies, good to great, to they're classics, and then we got 3 movies that are not good. And I was mostly worried, like, oh goodness sakes, I hope if this movie's bad, we will officially have more bad Star Wars movies than good. And that prospect really worried me. And I like The Force Awakens a lot. I think that it's a really layered movie, especially on a thematic level. That movie works. There's a meta narrative about it being a sequel to Star Wars, and that's basically the way it works as and it's presenting this world as an ongoing cycle of violence, and the wars are just the same thing happening over and over again. And the film kind of understands that it's a remake of A New Hope, and there's a lot of stuff in there I think that you can read into about religion and allusions to biblical uh, stories. And on top of that, it's just a lot of fun. I rewatched it before watching The Last Jedi, and I think that its biggest problem is it's probably too fast paced, moving into its second act. That I think an area where crucial character development and maybe some world building kind of gets glossed over because we need to have a Rathtar attack. But I do like The Force Awakens, and Rogue One, it was fine, whatever. And then leading up to Last Jedi, there's so much talk. It's all Star Wars all the time, constant exposure. It's always Star Wars. There's always Star Wars. It's always Star Wars. I'm burnt out. I'm sick of Star Wars. I don't care. I'm gonna go see it opening day because I don't want to get spoiled because I do care about what happens in the movie, but I don't care about talking about Star Wars. I think that's the place I kind of got to is I don't like talking about these movies anymore. I feel like everything that can be said has already been said about a lot of them. I don't like the discussion online. I don't like talking really about anything online. I like talking to people about things. And Star Wars is just this powder keg of, oh no, my Star Wars is the only good Star Wars. Everything that I don't like is terrible, and if you like it, then you're dumb. And I don't want to have to deal with any of that. So I just went to go see The Last Jedi, and it kind of reminded me why I liked Star Wars. And I remember sitting in that theater, and when it first started, I've seen it twice now. The first time it started, nah, I wasn't quite enjoying it. I didn't think it was bad or anything, but it was. And then Yoda showed up. And for those of you guys who don't know, Yoda is my favorite fictional character ever. I love Yoda. He's always been my favorite, and I think he's great. And the older I get, the more I like him. And when he showed up, I got a smack in the face, and like my little 10-year-old self got a hold of my body, and I was like, I'm watching a Star Wars movie again. And maybe it tricked me, I don't know. But for right now, and I think from then on, I really began to love this movie. Um, and then the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. And then I rewatched it, and I really like this movie. It has problems, but I loved it. Um, where do I start in this thing? Okay, so this movie is divided up into several subplots. I guess I'll start with the main one, or you know what? Maybe don't go into subplots. I think the best thing about this movie is, like Three Billboards, I've not seen another film by this director. Like I've never seen any of Martin McDonagh's other films. I've never seen any of Rian Johnson's other films. I've seen all of Breaking Bad. I've seen his work there. Really good stuff there. Ozymandias is such a great hour of television, but I never want to watch it again because it's just so hard to watch. And the episode Fly is how you do a bottle episode. I uh, I think that Rian Johnson has a very firm and clear understanding of the Force, and I think he gets the Force better than I think any other Star Wars filmmaker, including George Lucas. There's there's something we're told in A New Hope or the original Star Wars, whatever you want to call it. It's still the same movie, whatever. That movie, Obi-Wan says, the Force is an energy field uniting all living things, or something to that effect. And what's cool about the Force is that everyone has the Force. It unites all of us, but not everyone can use the Force. And the Force is about belief. You need to believe in the abstract, in that energy field, in what unites all of us. It's not about what you can see with what's in front of your own two eyes. And in the case of Han, it's not about having a blaster at your side at all times. And there's always a part of you that thinks, if Han just chose to not, if he chose to believe in something that he couldn't see, if he didn't have that blaster at his side, so to speak, he could be a great Jedi. Um, and and when you're a kid, I could be a Jedi if I just believe and I if I just believe enough and I am of a good heart and I'm the right kind of person, then I could be a Jedi. Then we got the prequels with midichlorians, and everyone hates midichlorians for good reason. It's because at that point, it's not about your merit. It's not about how good of a person or how strong you are in your convictions. It's all predetermined of like, well, you know, this person, sorry, they got more midichlorians than you. Yeah, they're a better Jedi just because. Um, that's stupid, and I think a lot of people rightfully rejected that. But then there's this weird thing that keeps persisting that I hear people talking about. They talk about force sensitivity, which, for my money, is just the same thing as midichlorians. It's stupid. Like, what has force sensitive been in any of these movies? It's not. It's stupid. So when it comes to force sensitivity, Rian Johnson, like myself, thinks that's stupid, and so he got rid of this. And what he understands about that force is what we're given with that original trilogy. It's a belief system, and the Jedi it's a religion, or the Force is seen as a religion that no one believes in that original trilogy, and that's and as a result, no one's a Jedi besides Yoda and Obi-Wan. They die off, and then Luke comes along, and he gets the Force, and then the whole stuff with his dad being Anakin Skywalker and all this stuff. It's all the family drama. That's all the Shakespearean sort of space opera stuff that's happening. With The Last Jedi, we are told that Rey came from no one. Her parents were nobody. They were junk traders that sold her for drinking money. That's the explanation we're given. And I'm not a betting man, but this movie makes me wish I were a betting man, because I would be rich off of this movie. I wanted Rey to be from nobody because, oh my gosh, is this universe as small as it could possibly be? And she's a Skywalker kid, or is she an Obi-Wan Kenobi kid? Thank goodness that's not what happened, because it makes her a better character. And then with the stuff with the kids, at the the kids on Canto Bight, they're like Rey. They don't. It's not about the stories inspiring people. It's not just about that. It's about the belief in something more. And so Rey having that in her heart and having that conviction, and that's what gives her her abilities. That's tied to that original discussion of what the Force is. And then having those kids at the end being the same as Rey, that it's that same inspiration. They're seeing the examples of the rebels, and they're seeing all this stuff that inspires them, and then they get the Force, and it's like something. It's almost like there's like this awakening in the Force that was talked about in episode 7. And oh, my bad. This is what I want out of the Force, and I think it's really cool. I think maybe in some of the details, especially in episode 7 now, it gets a little spotty, but that was my biggest relief coming out of this movie. And when it comes to the Luke stuff, he's shut himself off from the Force, and then this is a religion that needs to die. The Jedi need to end. There's a balance between all things, and it doesn't belong to simply us. And then him going down to burn the tree or whatever. And I love his final lesson where Yoda's like dude, it's not about the physical. You're placing importance on these books. You're placing importance on the words and not what the words mean. It's about the abstract. And so Yoda's like, okay, burn it down. I mean, what do you care? Like it's not about that. You know, you still need to learn about it. It's not about the crude matter. You got to feel the force around you. And I love that. You know, Luke is perpetually the apprentice until he's not anymore at the end, and you know everyone's still always learning. And failure is not always the end, and it's about redemption. And that's getting more into some of the other stuff, but and I really love that it's not about the physical. And then at the end, when Luke goes to face Kylo Ren and you know be there at the end, he's not physically there, and that's really cool to me. That's a really that's like an artsy thing that I would see in like some small indie movie, and people probably might think that's stupid. I really like that. It's really cool. Let me see if there's any. I'm doing this live, and let's see what we got. Oh, hey, Joel Davis. Hey, Joel. Hi, Joel. Sorry about that. So I really enjoy the stuff that we do with the Force in this movie and how it's about balance. And correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I don't think balance was ever brought up in the originals. That was all a prequel thing of it's this prophesized thing to bring balance to the Force. Joel, you are my Star Wars aficionado. Is balance in the Force ever mentioned in the original trilogy? All right, he's not responding, but if he does, I can have him right here. Um, but I think that's a prequel thing, and Rian Johnson incorporates some of that prequel stuff in a way that actually works here because they say balance in the Force, and I don't really get what that means in the context of that of those films because it's like, oh, is it just about there's too much light side, there's not enough dark side? And what's the point of having a balance if you're going to have these evil people that want to destroy everything and control everything? Um, and it's not really about that. The balance in the Force is about, and there's like that really neat Aronofsky-esque sequence that ends in a David Lynch special effect with the water going up and everywhere, where it's about life and death and rebirth and all this sort of stuff and destruction and replenishment. And this is in all living things. That's just what happens. It's natural order. And and the dark side is all about a perversion of that. And so I really enjoyed. That's the last thing about the whole Force element is I really enjoyed those three, not three, but the way Rian Johnson has a clear understanding of the Force. I also really like how this movie holds together. Oh, hey, Aiden, hi. You're a new subscribing to the channel. But thank you. Yeah, he's saying that it's not in the original trilogy. So when it comes to the way this movie holds together on a thematic level, I really like how we get into this more of the meta commentary that was introduced in The Force Awakens and how it's really about um, the deification of Star Wars. Because the one thing that we need to understand, this Rian Johnson approaches Star Wars the way Denis Villeneuve approached Blade Runner, and the way young filmmakers need to start approaching sequels, because we're going to keep getting these things, these delayed sequels to really beloved properties. We can't treat those movies like they're perfect and we can't touch them, because we are touching them all these years later. And if we're going to do it, we need to like crack our knuckles and get our hands dirty, because what made Blade Runner 2049 so great is that Denis Villeneuve looked at Ridley Scott's brilliant classic and then said, okay, but if I'm going to make a sequel, I can't treat this as a Bible. And this is something me and Rasco talks about when we chat. And I feel like Rian Johnson is doing the same thing here, where the whole movie's about like, and it almost seems to deconstruct this. It starts off as like we can't deify people because when we treat the people as living legends, that the legends is brought up. When we treat people as legends, then things cease to, um, pardon me. Then they absolute power corrupts, that sort of thing. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Um, but then the movie kind of breaks that down and then retools itself. And the whole thing is there's a bit of a deconstructionist thing where it starts to reaffirm what Star Wars is at the end, where, disregarding history is bad because if you can disregard history, people are doomed to repeat it. And that's exactly what is happening to Kylo Ren. He wants to kill the past and eradicate it. And in doing so, he's just becoming the Empire again. And in doing so, with the knowledge of what it's like to be a deification, we see how Rey is becoming a bit of a legend, and she, there's that thing inside of her that's like, okay, I need to learn how to control that, because at the end she shakes hands with Poe, and Poe's like, oh, I know that you are Rey. Obviously, you're Rey, and because she's becoming a legend now, and I'm getting kind of sidetracked. I think thematically speaking, this movie is really tied together very strongly. It's a very big, ambitious, sprawling film that does have a focus in its themes and how these subplots all seem to come together. But also on a character level, they do track from that first movie. And sorry guys, I think I'm going to be needing water here pretty soon. I didn't pack a giant mug. But when it comes to, like, I'll start with Finn, because his subplot, I think, is the weak link here after seeing it a second time. So with Finn, him waking up and wanting to leave the leave the Resistance makes sense to me. It is a logical regression of character, because the way that first movie ends, he stood up to Kylo Ren and got, like, annihilated. He got his back split open and he lost in a lightsaber fight, and rightfully so. Kylo Ren was still, like, really hurt and injured, and I don't think Finn had any training with, like, a weapon that wasn't a blaster. So I think it makes sense that he would, get with that first movie. I'm rambling, I'm sorry, and I'm interrupting myself, but that first movie, he's all excited to be out in the world again, or being in the world for the first time and experiencing life and realizing that being a stormtrooper, who he is, and trying to run away the whole time. And then through Rey and really only Rey, he's like, I do want to stay. And I mean, it makes sense. She looks like Daisy Ridley. But there's a part of him that does start to fight for something. He's fighting against the Resistance for someone that he likes, and someone who's his friend. And then he makes a stand and gets beaten hard for it, and then wakes up and is like, oh crap, the Republic's dead and we're getting hunted down by the First Order and everything sucks. Yeah, I'm out of here. And that makes sense. Like, that's a logical regression of his character, I feel. And then we meet Rose, and I think Rose is a legitimate problem with the film. I got nothing against this actress. I'm sure she's a decent actress, but I think compared to everyone else, she's the weak link. She strikes me as a lot like Catherine Watterson, where she has perpetual cry face, perpetual worry face. It looks like she's always about to burst into tears. All of her lines were like, oh, I hate this place. And it's all staccato, and she's doing a lot of yelling and a lot of very stern mugging. We meet Rose here, and I think that pairing up Finn with Rose was maybe the lesser two options. I honestly think if Finn just went to Canto Bight by himself, we could have done some better stuff. And if the subplot was longer, I would have stood for the subplot to be longer. I'll tell you what I mean. I think that inserting Rose and having her character, she doesn't have enough time for us to really see her do anything she talks a lot about her past, about her beliefs. She talks a lot. And with a lot of our main characters, we're shown things about them. And as a result, show don't tell, they are better characters. We see a day in the life of Rey early on, and that's what compels us to her. We see that progression in her character. With Kylo Ren, we see the way he wants to be. But then we see the way his superiors treat him, and then we see him take off his mask, and it's all through visuals that we see who these people become. So that's but with Rose, we don't really get that. We see her sister. Her sister's a better character than she is. I think. We see her doing actions, and she's more compelling. With Rose, though, she's sad that her sister's dead, and then she talks about her backstory and how she hates Canto Bight because of the facade it represents, and then she just at the end she talks about her philosophy of like, here's how we're going to win and all that stuff, and I feel that completely contradicts her actions, and she doesn't understand Finn's actions. um so she says that I hate Canto Bight, so then they get in and just completely destroy it, and then she takes off the saddle and says, okay, now it's worth it. She takes the saddle off of the weird horse thing, but then at the end she says, here's how we're going to win. We're going to win uh, by protecting what we love, not fighting what we hate. So then what was Canto Bight? I hate this place. I want to punch a hole right through it. And you punched a hole right through it. Oh, but it was worth it when I took the thing off. So I gotta have my cake and eat it too. Good for you, Rose. And then when it comes to the stuff at the end with Finn, Finn is not really uh, fighting what he hates. I mean, he is. He's making a stand, fighting what he hates, but like he's also more than that, protecting what he loves. Like fighting what you hate and protecting what you love aren't mutually exclusive. You can do both. What do you think a war is? Like you got to fight the First Order eventually, honey. Um, don't mean to be condescending, but this doesn't make sense to me. And then he's protecting people. He's going to stop this laser. He doesn't know Luke Skywalker is going to show up, and so he's making a stand. And if had Finn died there, it would have meant something if Rose wasn't there, because Rose wouldn't have come and saved him, and then he would have, protected the people longer by saving. There's no one on that battering ram cannon, so he's not gonna be killing anybody. He's got no lasers on his thing. He is protecting what he loves. He's protecting what he loves over fighting what he hates. And so I don't get that. And so then um removing Rose from the equation, if Finn just went to Canto Bight by himself, he would have been like, oh wow, this is so wonderful and beautiful. And then he would have realized how bad it was on his own, and that would have required more time. But again, it would have shown us visually him, I love this place, and then realizing it through what he's singing, oh, this is bad. And he's a bit of a coward. He's running away from his calling of being somebody in the resistance, and seeing the galaxy he's running to Canto Bight, and seeing all the injustices there, and being like, oh crap, I don't like this. I'm gonna go back to the resistance and make a stand so I can, after we get rid of the First Order, we can correct these problems. That would have been a lot better of a story there. And people don't like Canto Bight. They think it looks too prequelish, and fine, you can complain about that. I don't really care. But I think that would have been a much better thing. And if he just met the Benicio del Toro character, that also would have worked, because I really like the Benicio del Toro character. He's a reflection of, he is a reflection of Finn if he continues to run. In several years, it's a couple decades, if Finn becomes Benicio del Toro's like, hey, look at man, I don't like anybody. I just do what I can to get by, and the problems and the injustices in this galaxy persist. And that is, there's a really good idea here, and I think including Rose kind of ruins a lot of this stuff. It takes away, because a lot of Finn's movements feel like the movements in his character are explained to him, and then he just kind of just takes them at face value and goes, Okay, no, I don't think it's good. It is bad, and it kind of takes the wind out from under his character. I think once they leave Canto Bight, it gets awesome. When they get to Snoke's big ship, it gets really cool. I like his showdown with Phasma. Some really good, well done fight choreography. That's really all I have to say about that. I think that's the biggest problem with the film is that part of the subplot, specifically Rose, and it's a shame because I think there's a real something there with the sister of somebody who died fighting for a cause, teaming up with somebody who's running away from a cause. There's really something there, but I think it overcomplicates it, especially for the length of this material. So I'm gonna look like you got, as I suspected, with Star Wars coming up, we got a lot of people talking. So we got do do do. Oh, hey, a red leader, doing? How you doing? Um, right, a lot of stuff. Ryan gets the Force so much better than a lot of fans and even writers. Yeah, he gets it based off of the information we get from the original. I really like that. Uh, okay. I guess yeah. I mean, those stormtroopers had riot batons in the Force Awakens, so I guess Finn might have had similar training. I wasn't really thinking about that, but maybe you're right. Kylo Ren was better trained. I guess that's a good way of maybe explaining that away. But yeah, I think there are parts where we forget that Finn was raised as a stormtrooper. I think we forget that in some areas, and that's maybe a little disappointing, and some chinks in the armor, I suppose. Well, let me think of some other stuff regarding Star Wars. This is probably going to be the big section of this night of reviews. I really wish I got some water. Um, so I guess when next subplot I'll tackle is the stuff with the fleet. What I really like about this is, so when I first watched this, I thought that the part where Leia gets shot out into space and then uses the Force to get back, I thought that was like the dumbest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I was like, "There's that's stupid," and like my brother Spencer said, "This is stupid." And nothing. This movie could be the best movie ever made, but nothing will never make that not stupid. The second time I watched it, I just didn't feel that way. Nothing changed. It's the same thing. I don't have any new. Oh, it actually means this. The entire Star Wars Last Jedi, it really hinges on this one. Nothing like that. Um, and honestly speaking, this is kind of embarrassing to say, but I almost cried. Um, and it's more of a circumstances outside of the movie sort of situation where Carrie Fisher's dead. Um, and then watching her on screen get blown out into space, and then like she has a power to realize, oh, this is a movie, and this isn't real, and you wish this was real. You wish the Force existed because then like people could save them, like you could save people, and it I don't know what it was. It kind of got to me, and the music in that sequence is beautiful. John Williams did does some really good stuff here. The way it swells, I don't know, it was one of those movie magic moments, and I think the way it's lit and the way we do it, we make it look as good as we can. But even then, like on a story level, it's completely unnecessary, and I don't get why it's even in the movie. But I think it kind of worked on me the second time. Don't really know what else to say. Maybe I'm stupid, but let me look at your. Let's look at what people are saying. Red is saying the Leia scene got him as well. Um, that's cool. At least I'm not the only one. And Aiden says that her in the hospital bed almost got him. Yeah, that was. It's weird seeing Carrie Fisher in these situations, knowing like how she went out, and nothing about this movie was changed. It's weirdly morbid, but it doesn't feel exploitative. It feels in tribute, and I like that. the deification of Princess Leia is okay in this movie because she's the only person who didn't run away when things got hard. Han ran away when things got hard, just to do what was normal to him. Luke had to turn his. I understand why Luke turned away, um, but Leia continued to fight the good fight that she was even before the original Star Wars started, and I really really like that. So I like that her legend isn't even really a legend. It's it's you can see what she's done, and so and her legend does continue to inspire people because it doesn't go to her head. We don't see how it goes to her head. We're left to believe it doesn't go to her head, and she gets blinded by it. So that's part of that stuff that I do. Do leader until he says she is an active symbol. That's the way of putting it. So I'm going to get into the Poe Dameron Fleets subplot. So Laura Dern is in this movie. I love Laura Dern. She's one of my favorite actresses. I think she's spectacular. She was in Twin Peaks, the Return, and I don't know if anyone knows this, but I love Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is like my favorite show. And how funny is it that she is in like two of the most like subversive, turn the thing on their head things of the year? Where, I mean, compared to Twin Peaks, this new Star Wars movie is as conventional and by the numbers as they come, because that season of Twin Peaks was like, oh, you remember Twin Peaks from 25 years ago? Yeah, this is nothing like that. It's completely different. The structure is different. The tone is different. Everything is completely different. And then with Star Wars, this movie is just it's just tweaking stuff here and there, and people are losing their minds. So it's just kind of funny. I'm not gonna say whether people's opinions on this movie is stupid, but I'm just saying if Twin Peaks was as popular as Star Wars, people would have like the world would not be around after that last season of Twin Peaks. Yeah, I know, Red. He asks, "Wait, you like Twin Peaks? That has never come up." Yeah, I know. I never talk about Twin Peaks. It's not like it's my. It's not like it's the only thing I've gotten pop vinyl figures for. Look it's a Dale Cooper. I love Twin Peaks. Um, I am so embarrassed that I caved and bought pop vinyl figures. Of course, it was for Twin Peaks. Um, so with Poe Dameron, like this whole subplot makes sense to me. Like it's all right. Poe Dameron did something stupid. He gets demoted, and Laura Dern is keeping everything close to her chest because the rebellion is in shambles. Their leader's taken out, and uh, they're they're on the run. They don't really have a plan. They got like blindsided by an attack from the First Order, and they are just trying to get the heck out of Dodge. Oh, hey, I got some. Hey, a viewer named Kelly Jones. Hey, Kelly. They say Captain Eric's review left me feeling a little disappointed, primarily because of how they behaved in voicing their opinions. Can you give a moderating view on the pros and cons of this movie? That's what I am trying to do. For those of you who do not follow Geekvolution, they are a channel that I am closely associated with. I guess I'm a really small channel. So saying associations is that whatever. Can I hold on? Let me try to remove this foot from my mouth. So when it comes to uh, the subplot with the fleet, I see it as a microcosm of the galaxy. So the Republic got taken out of the galaxy, and the First Order is taking over. How can that happen? They took out okay, so first off with Starkiller Base, that got blown up. But Snoke was never on Starkiller Base, so I had all intentions of believing it wasn't really completed. And that that was just something that they just finished doing. And now that it's exploded, it's like, okay, but there's still a first order, still a that's around. Uh, the Republic taken out, the First Order is rising. And why are they rising? Well, if we look at this as a microcosm for this greater conflict, General Leia gets taken out of the picture, who is maybe the stand-in for the Republic, and there's a power struggle, and there's a power vacuum, and everyone wants to be in charge, everyone wants their plan, and maybe all of their plans could be working if they just listened to each other, and if Poe just knew his place. And some people are complaining. I've heard complaints that like his big lesson is that he should just listen to the authority, and I think that's maybe people overlooking or oversimplifying the moral, because like look at his example. Like when he takes charge, people get hurt, and he's not thinking about the larger picture. He had his chance, and and the Holdo does have a bigger picture, and she's not going to tell Poe because he's a demoted person, and she's. I mean, I have no reason to believe she's not telling some people about her plan, because when it comes to her plan, um, they are so small and in shambles. She can't risk any information getting out. And by the way, the information does get out, which is what happens and pose the problem. And there's almost this Shakespearean element of, if we all just listened, none of this would have happened, and all the problems stem from nobody listening to each other. It's kind of like Three Billboards in that regard. By the way, go watch Three Billboards. It's a really good movie. Sam Rockwell and Frances McDormand are excellent. Pardon me, plug. I reviewed that earlier in the same stream. Um, so when it comes to uh, I was talking about the fleet. So I really like the way this movie's structured. I like how it doesn't follow a traditional three-act structure. I like how Rian Johnson incorporates the law of relativity in a really fun way. Either this is like, because you can get around this with space stuff because of like relativity, where it's like 18 hours with the fleet, and then like 3 days for Rey, or like on the third day she comes to the fight. And the way we edit it's like, oh, I mean, it could just be relativity. I mean, it's all just nitpicks anyways, but like either way, it's just kind of neat. So Poe Dameron got a boosted role here, and Oscar Isaac is so charismatic and charming. It's always great seeing Laura Dern. I like how feminine Laura Dern is here. I like how this movie like has its story and then places little strokes and little themes on top of that, and it places other ideas on top of it. I've heard some people dissecting this as a story about women teaching boys how to be men, and I can see that, because I think that whether it's winning the affection of a woman, or whether it's learning from like a mom or something, that women in, I mean, and I speak from this as a heterosexual male, of growing up, I've learned a lot from women in my life, and whether that's trying to win the affection of like a girlfriend or something, or learning from my mother or a stepmother or something. And so I was able to connect with the movie on that regard, where it's like we didn't just make Vice Admiral Holdo like a dude with tits. We made her feminine, and there's nothing necessarily in the dialogue, but it's the way Laura Dern plays it, where she's very caring and she's very soft in the way she delivers dialogue, and I really liked that, and a lot of that is kind of neat, I think, anyways. So uh and like I said, Rian Johnson built a story and then added that on top, and so I think that that's an interesting choice from Johnson as a storyteller. I like how the big climax comes like somewhere in the second act, but it was one of those things where I like how patient and methodical it is for a while, and then like the last 50 minutes is like just go 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 action, and I was never exhausted. I was amped for this thing. I was like, Snoke is dead, yeah, oh sweet, there's this awesome fight, and then I remembered in the trailers like Snow Planet with the red going everywhere. It's like, yeah, I'm amped now, and it's really really fun, because uh, I feel like this movie in a lot of ways was made for me. So now I'm going to get into like personal stuff I like about this. So red's like my favorite color, and red's all over this movie. For a cinema joke that I don't think anyone's going to get. My brother Spencer said, "Gee, I wonder what movie has more red like per capita, Star Wars: The Last Jedi or Cries and Whispers." There's red all over this movie, and it's great. So I also like Ray's parents are nobody. Thank you, Rian Johnson. You get the Force, and also Snoke was nobody. Ooh, ooh, yeah, that makes me so happy. Um, oh, it was so great. um, Snoke gets sliced in half because Snoke just kind of sucks, guys. Of all the characters from Force Awakens, Snoke was the person I was least on board with. That in that area, it did feel like, all right, it's just the Emperor, and I do think Snoke is a problem with this movie as well in terms of we don't understand him from a philosophical point at all. He's just an abusive jerk. So I don't understand what about him was alluring to Kylo Ren or how he even has the First Order to follow him. He's just really mean, and I don't get anything about him like how he turned Kylo. I don't get that. So that's a little frustrating. But him getting taken out in service of the real villain character, Kylo Ren, was very satisfying. And that's a word I will use to describe this movie. I found it very satisfying, and I found it sophisticated, and it was elegantly made, and it was real nice. This was something that really shook me out of my apathy for Star Wars in recent years, and that was just really cool. Let me look at what people are saying. Doo-ba-doo. Red is. I look like people are mostly chatting with one another. Kelly Jones says, "I'm right in the middle of enjoying this film while also acknowledging its flaws. I came in hopes that Connor would offer an insight of moderation. So far, he's doing great." Oh well, thank you very much, Kelly. Um, yeah, it does have problems. This movie is very ambitious. It goes big. It also, misses in areas, and that's just to be expected with something of this magnitude. Is it uneven? Yes, but it's uneven in the ways that epic movies really are. And this is really something I'll say about this movie. It's an epic. It feels big. It feels epic, and that's really satisfying. Because like I think of like Ben-Hur, and like that movie's it's pretty uneven, but it feels that movie. Epic can mean whether it's big in scale. It also is short for episodic. And Ben-Hur, I have a review of Ben-Hur that will get released someday. It's like a 16-page paper that I wrote on that movie. But that movie almost feels like you're watching. It almost feels like a series of episodes. Ben-Hur does, and with Star Wars, it is an epic. It's told in parts. It's told in episodes, and I like that this movie almost feels like an episode, like of a serialized piece of storytelling. It's serialized. It's a this feels like the stuff with this movie feels like 3 or 4 different episodes of a TV show, like edited together in synchronicity. And so it uses the film large or not large long format, but a short format storytelling of 2.5 hours, and gives us like enough of like cliffhangers, and it honors the film serial history of Star Wars while also being an epic movie, like just a 2.5 hour piece. And I like that this movie just told a story. It told us the story like that because I like the Marvel movies just fine. I really do. But there's this problem of we gotta save stuff for later. And that's really always frustrating to me. Um, Here though, Rian Johnson's like, I'm just gonna tell a story, and whatever comes next can do whatever's next. Because there's enough here to conclude a trilogy with. I take issue. I hear this a lot, and I'm not trying with any person or thinking this is wrong, but for my single self, I think that calling The Force Awakens nothing but setup is kind of wrong. There's enough of a story there on its own, and there's enough set up there for a sequel. And I feel like Rian Johnson did the thing where he just made a movie and left enough there for a sequel, but just told a story. And it was really satisfying. It reminded me of the way Christopher Nolan made his Batman movies, where he just made this big story and said, all right, if I make a sequel, I'll make a sequel. And then he made a sequel, and then they just told a big story called Dark Knight, and then he made a third big story called Dark Knight Rises. And I think they work as a trilogy just fine. And there's not all of that. I got to save stuff for later. We really got to pull our punches because we got to come back at the end. That's how I got voted off of Who Reviews the Reviewers, because I came to life at the end of a review, but not during the beginning of one. I lost my train of thought, but that's what I liked about this movie is it told a freaking story. And when it came to episode 7, I was really excited for episode 8. I was like, I want to see episode 8 right now. I don't care about Rogue One. I want to see episode 8 right now. And after seeing episode 8, like I said, I'm satisfied. I'm perfectly fine. I don't need to see episode 9 right now, and that's okay. I can look forward to watching these two movies in a double feature, and I'll be aces. Let's see what people are saying. Red Leader says not snow, salt. I know. I was when I saw the trailer, I thought it was a snow planet. My bad. I should have said salt planet. My bad. Favorite animal in the film: porg, space horse, or sea monster with udders? That giant fish was pretty cool, but I liked the porgs. The porgs were funny, and this is something I did like about the movie as well. It allowed, like, let's be honest, guys. Like, Chewbacca doesn't really have a place in any of the Star Wars movies. Like, Chewbacca is like he's like a piece of I give every franchise like one character that doesn't really need to be there, but we like him anyway, so we're okay with him. I give every franchise like one of those. Like with Lord of the Rings, it's Gimli. There's no reason Gimli really needs to be in the Lord of the Rings movies, but he's there, and it's okay. He's Sala from Indiana Jones, right? With Star Wars, it's Chewbacca, but I like that we give Chewbacca, like, we give him a little something. We give him porgs. That's fine. That's great. And I like how the porgs were even conceived. I think Rian Johnson said when they were on that island, there are these specific birds, and they were like, what if we made these like porgs? And I think that's what I heard was the story. I'm like, oh, that's creative. Um, Joel Davis says, I like how Hux is everyone's whipping boy. I do too. Hux is interesting because he's played by Domhnall Gleeson, who is a great actor. He doesn't even like look or act like Domhnall Gleeson in either of these movies. It's funny to me. But I do like that. It's funny. Upon a second viewing, there's a lot less comedy in this movie than I remembered. People do stuff in this movie, and the first time I watched it, people laughed. But watching it again, I could see why people were laughing at them, but it just felt like people just sort of did stuff, and it's kind of funny when you look at it. And if you look at it with certain eyes, oh, that's kind of funny. But it doesn't have to be funny. You can also not laugh at it, and the scene plays off just fine. So I was perfectly okay with that as well. I don't know if I have much more to say about this. I want to talk about Kylo Ren because this is a great character. I think Kylo Ren is honestly one of the best villains we've had in some time. I think he's great. He is there's again, when we talk about that meta narrative of the Force Awakens, it's about people. It's about a younger generation who grew up hearing stories about the Empire and the Jedi and everything that are now grown up and playing those same roles. Kind of like how these new Star Wars movies are made by people who grew up watching the original Star Wars movies and are now making them, playing out the roles of George Lucas and Irvin Kershner and Richard Marquand and Lee Brackett and all those people who made the originals happen. Get it? And so what I like though was Kylo Ren. It wants to be the new Darth Vader, and he's just not. And he's kind of a like a little snotty brat, and that works. That makes him interesting. He's an anti-Darth Vader. He wants to be Darth Vader so bad, but he's just not. Um, but I liked how he's still a bit scary to me, because there in that first movie, you could watch that movie and think, why is this guy even like a villain? Like, what's up with this guy? Like he's pulled to the light side. You know, there's a part where he's talking to Darth Vader's helmet, and he's like, I felt it again and tugged to the light, where you think, oh, his instinct is he wants to be good. Um, but if you remember at the end of, I mean, how can you forget Han Solo dying? He killed his own father, and he's like, hey, look, at that moment he made a choice that he's going to be the bad guy. and with um, that light that is still inside of him, you can try to see that, and you can see that, and you can acknowledge it's there, but fundamentally his actions are bad. And you can believe and have this good inside of you all you want, but it ultimately comes down to the choices and the actions you make, and he's beyond like redemption at this point. And hey, that kind of ties again to Three Billboards, which is a movie you guys should all totally watch because it's great. um, it's about the choices you make, and I really like that in this movie we have the Force Skype with Kylo and Rey, where they both saw something in each other, and they're both so convinced that they can get the other on their side. And then when everything really, like when all the chips go down, they say, well, no, we're ultimately going to stay where we are. But that was, I think, now that they have a real personal reason for disliking each other, other than, hey, you killed this guy who was really nice to me. You're a bad man, Kylo Ren. Now it's a little bit more personal than that, of like, I saw who you could be. I saw that you could be this great person. Um, but now, um, but you are making the choice against that. And Kylo Ren saw in her that like she was with him, and then he's like, oh, that can't happen. So now there's a personal reason why they're going to blows with one another. And I really enjoyed all that stuff. And again, I mean, the lightsaber fight was really cool. What's really cool here is there's there are like 2 or 3 lightsaber fights where lightsabers never clash, and that's really creative. That's cool. That's something different. That's new. That's unexpected. That's neat. That's really cool. Whenever anybody wants to make a fan film, they just can't wait to whip out their lightsabers and have them clashing all the time. All right, let's see what we got. Oh wow, we got a lot of people commenting. Kelly Jones says, one thing I would have changed in this movie as far as antagonists go is explore more of the First Order, go in depth of themes of control versus balance. That's interesting. I think that might have been a little bit more than this movie could have. That would have been a little too much for this movie to bite off, and it would have been more than it could chew. But I could see where you're going with that. I do wish the First Order was a little bit more explained in these movies. That's just going to be like an overarching problem, I might feel. I think that the explanation of how the First Order really came to rise and all that could have been explained when Rey and Finn first chatted with Han Solo. But no, we have Rathars to deal with. We got to move. J.J. Abrams is over on the corners going, go, 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 go. As much as people don't like to hear about political agendas on escapist fiction, I think with an organization like the First Order, there is plenty of material to mine. Get rid of Snoke, structure Hux, Kylo, and Phasma as the 3 solid pillars of the First Order, explore their goals/motivations, and how they coincide with each other, and their contrast to the Rebels. Yeah, that is a very good observation. I also wish we could maybe do that too. I don't think we're ever going to really do that because that overarching stuff is not going to be imperative to the immediate story for these movies, and that's maybe a problem with the constant movement of these movies. So that's a little frustrating, but I've kind of come to peace with the possibility of that never being answered. But if it does bother people, I more than understand. That's completely understandable. Aiden says, I'd be okay if Lucasfilm focused on anthology movies for a few years and then came back to episode 9 with a real-time jump. That would be cool. I'm okay with them doing 9. After 9, it would be awesome if we had no more episodes. Rian Johnson is going to be doing his own uh, trilogy of movies. I'm excited to see how he does that. The one thing I like about this movie is that it's getting a lot of hate. It's very polarizing. Um, and people are wondering, oh, how is J.J. Abrams going to do stuff? Is he going to just like completely retcon stuff and retool stuff? There's two reasons. One, Rian Johnson's biggest fan is Kathleen Kennedy, and two, J.J. Abrams is a mystery box filmmaker. He likes the mystery box. Mystery box requires is to not change anything from the past, only add to that. Oh, there's this guy named Luke Skywalker. Or sorry, there's this guy named Anakin Skywalker, and there's this guy named Darth Vader. Actually, they're the same person. That's not necessarily changing anything, but sorry, that's a story. My bad. Oh man, I got a really bad example, didn't I? But I think that with a mystery box filmmaker, um, he can't change anything that we saw happen. Um, Everything that has happened is now happening. We can say that, oh hey, while this was happening, there's this other thing that was happening. We can do that with mystery box storytelling, but we can't say, oh crap, remember when you killed Snoke and like blew his ship in half? He pulled himself back together. Woo! That's not going to happen. And I don't think Kathleen Kennedy would let that happen. I'm interested to see where they go from here. I don't know what they're going to do at episode 9. I'm excited. There's all this possibility ahead of us, and that's got me excited. Yeah, and then Red says, yeah, like the saber throw. I'm funny, but because it was a tragic moment on some level. I agree. I never laughed at that. Everyone I saw that with laughed at it. And the second time I watched it, did. Like he wasn't laughing at it. He was like, "Whoa, didn't see that coming." So that was kind of cool. And then Aiden says that they know they won't do the thing, but it would feel right. That would be cool. I wish that we had a trilogy of trilogies and then we stopped. And then from then on, we just do anthologies and stuff that I wouldn't necessarily count because we'd have our trilogy of trilogies and I'd be fine. I don't know if we'll do that or not, though. I'll see what happens. Um, Red Leader Antilles says, even if Ben came back to the light side, it would never undo what he did. He is still a bad person and can possibly never make up for the bad he did. You cross a line at a certain point. You can feel bad, but at that point, it's not redemption, it's penance. That is a good point. I think penance is a form of redemption, but that's maybe a good way of putting it. Aiden says he sees a redemption conclusion for Ren. I think we do with that. No, we are not going to do that. He is now going to be the ultimate villain of the series, and I think that is the right choice to go with. Red Leader says, "Wow, Connor, that fan film comment sounded super dirty." What fan film comment? I'm sorry. And yep, that line with a certain type of Star Wars film fans. Okay. Nathan Snyder says, "Yeah, I ain't going near the Geek Evolution comment section again. Jeez. Also, hi everybody, and I love this film. Hey Nathan, how you doing? Yeah, whenever Star Wars comes up, everyone likes to be mean to each other. So I'd like to not do that. We can all be civil here. If you didn't like it, hey, I'm sorry you didn't like it. I really did like it." Red says, if we ever do a spin-off to TFA, but involve the 4FO. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know Star Wars shorthand. All right. They're all kind of having all right. So I'm going to wind down my thoughts here. I found the action to be beautiful. There's a lot of really neat, artfully constructed shots here. I think the way Johnson balances everything is really, pardon me, is really thoughtful. I like the themes. I like the way it deconstructs the idea of legends and history, and then breaks it down and sees how that can go bad and how it can go good. Where Kylo Ren says, "No, kill the past. It cannot happen." He's a dark side, but he's a rogue agent. He's not necessarily aligned with anyone. He's this new possibility of scary bad guy. And then we got, but not. He's still the Empire, and he doesn't realize that because he's killing the past, and that's interesting. I like that. And Adam Driver's so great in this role. He's wonderful. Adam Driver's just a great actor in general. If you guys didn't see Logan Lucky earlier this year, he was great in that. Plays a one-armed bartender. And then I think that with Rey and the Resistance understanding history, but also not glorifying it, is also smart. Yeah, like this movie a lot. I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. I gave it like an 8.5 or a 9. Not really sure. This movie has really gone up. It's in my top 5 of the year. I've seen about 100 movies so far this year. Not as much as I wish it were, but really, really like it. All right, done with Star Wars. Now we're going to move into The Shape of Water, which is the new film from Guillermo del Toro. This is on the AFI's top 10 of the year. So was 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which is a movie all should watch because it's really good. Shape of Water is probably going to be nominated for Oscars, and it has got a lot of awards situated everywhere. I thought that Blade Runner 2049 had Best Cinematographer in the bag, but that movie's getting no love for whatever reason, so maybe Best Cinematography is going to be going to Shape of Water. And I'd be okay with that. So Shape of Water tells the story of a woman played by Sally Hawkins who works at a lab facility. She is mute, and she has a neighbor next door played by Richard Jenkins, who is an artist. She is basically a custodial worker at a lab with her best friend, who is played by Octavia Spencer. I think it's mentioned at one point that they are for 10 years. And then the lab manager, or the overseer, the person in charge from our point of view, is Michael Shannon. Michael Stuhlbarg also works here. And then we have, one day, a creature of sorts played by Doug Jones. Not Dougie Jones from Twin Peaks, Doug Jones, and not the senator of Alabama, a different Doug Jones. He is a weird gill-man creature. And a lot of these people are outsiders, and a story about them coalesces in a movie called The Shape of Water, written and directed by Guillermo del Toro. I thought this movie was absolutely beautiful. It was a treasure, and it was movie magic. If I had to put it into lame terms or cornball cliches, I don't care. This movie was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I think that the first thing that really caught my eye about this movie. Oh, and all the viewers are gone because they ain't talking about Star Wars anymore. Okay, that's fine. One second, guys. I'm going to read some comments really fast. All right, see you, Red. He dropped out. Oh, sorry. Going back to Star Wars really fast. Kelly Jones asked where I see Kylo and Rey's relationship going, given they can still sense each other through the Force. I thought that was a Snoke mechanism, and that he can't feel them. And that was Snoke doing that. I don't know if they can still do that. If they can, I didn't notice that, but I don't know. That's interesting. I will see in episode 9. All right, so back up to The Shape of Water. This is a story about outsiders, and the cast is entirely comprised of character actors. And that is awesome. This is a movie that is basically, I'm not, to my eternal shame and embarrassment, as of right now, I have not seen Pan's Labyrinth. The only other Guillermo del Toro film I have seen is Crimson Peak, which I thought was thoroughly mediocre. And this is the guy I've heard about, and this is the guy I've wanted to see when I go to see Guillermo del Toro. This is basically, from what my brother Spencer, who has seen Pan's Labyrinth, has told me, this is a lot like that, where it's a fairy tale, it's a fable. and it's like a fable for grown-ups, where um, there's nudity and there's blood and there's a lot of like mature themes, like sexuality and oppression and uh, there's gore, but at its core, it's a fairy tale. It's a fable. Uh, this is really sweet and special. From the opening shot where the camera goes moving around the Richard Jenkins has a monologue, and the way that first shot works, where we're in the water and we're seeing an apartment building floating underwater, and then all of a sudden the water goes out and the story starts from there. For right away, I was on this movie's wavelength and I got where it was going, and it was so sweet. It's really hard to talk about this movie. I can only use like three phrases. It was sweet, it was adorable, it was wonderful, movie magic. It, but I feel like talking about this movie and explaining it like is counterintuitive, because what you see is what you get. Like I'm just explaining what you're looking at and what you're seeing. But this is all about the emotional response it gets out of the viewer. And from that regard, it is really remarkable. I think the way this movie connects with its audience, and this is where the reason I like talking about cinematography, the reason I like talking about like technical aspects and direction of a film, is because a well-produced movie is more than just it looks good. Good direction is good storytelling. And when you have a person who is really trying to tell a story through emotional, like trying to show you images and put together something through emotional responses out of its audience, you can there's a level of, I'm sorry guys, I lost my train of thought. Um, but it's good storytelling, and I wish that more filmmakers understood this, and I wish more audiences responded to this sort of thing. I feel like I went to the theater and I saw somebody's heart on display. Somebody was showing me their heart and was like, "Look at this eyes." They had this story and they had this passion, and I felt like I saw a movie and I understood the person who told the story more than I did when I left. Um, there's some really fun visual stuff here. Like there's Michael Shannon gets his fingers torn off, and this takes place, I assume, sometime in the 50s, maybe the 60s, maybe the 40s. Not sure. Well, there's TV, so it has to be at least the 50s. But they stitch his fingers back on and just wonder if it's going to take. And of course, they're dead fingers; they're not going to take. And so they turn complete, and they begin to turn black. The more evil he becomes. So that's and there's stuff like that. And there's the fable, like they incorporate stuff like the story of Samson and Delilah from the Bible, and the way that will play out. It's all like, I feel like I'm not even really, like, I'm just talking about the movie and like, yes, this is how it works, and it almost is counterintuitive. This is not a movie that you go to see a plot. This is a movie where you go to see a story and to have an emotional response. And I feel like now I'm just talking in circles. So this is a lot shorter than I wanted it to be, but um, there's two things I wanted to touch on. Doug Jones as the Gill Man thing is brilliant. He's really really good, and he looks great. It's probably a combination of makeup, prosthetics, and CG work. Oh, wow. Oops, sorry guys. It's probably a combination of all that stuff. But whatever they did, he looks real. He looks absolutely great. It never takes you out when you're looking at this weird fish man. And there's a scene in this movie that completely took my breath away and shook me to my core. I want to rewatch this scene because I don't remember any of the words said, because my mouth, like, this sounds like something you hear like it's like a box quote cliche or something, but it actually happened. Like my mouth opened up, and I was like, I felt like I was in Get Out, where I was like, or I was like shining or something. My eyes were wide open, and my mouth was open, and a few scenes, like then sometime at the ending of the next scene, I realized my mouth was still open. It's the song and dance number where Sally Hawkins' character, who's mute, really wants to express her love for the fish man, and then it goes into black and white, and all of a sudden you can hear her start to talk, and it's like this expressionist thing, and it turns into this big Hollywood, show thing where the fish man, and there's like dancers and everything, and she's singing, and then it's all so beautifully expressed. It reminded me a lot of the scene from Sing Street, Drive It Like You, pardon me, the part from Sing Street where they're performing Drive It Like You Stole It, and they're going to film a music video, and it's not going the way the main character wants it to. So then in his mind, he sees the way he wants that music video to go, and it reminded me a lot of that, and it just perfectly expressed the imagination on screen, and the way you wish it could be in real life. And there's an element of escapism for this character, and it's so well seated. Like early on, we see her and Richard Jenkins like to watch musicals and stuff, and it's beautiful. It's great stuff, and I think that the cinematography here is absolutely gorgeous. The way everything has like a teal or green or blue, sort of, mostly green teal. That color is everywhere in this movie, and the way like the ending on the dock, like it looks so gorgeous. Like these are posters, like the posters. I want to frame this up. I can't wait till I buy the Blu-ray and watch it on a projector or something, because like this movie uses a 185 to 1 aspect ratio, which is very close to this 16:9 frame that you are watching this video on. And in Justice League, which is a movie that used the same aspect ratio earlier this year, which I hated, that movie looked like it was made for television. And I think in this day and age, when people use the 16:9 aspect ratio, or the 185 to 1, which is very close, things start to look like they're made for TV, and that the way we watch TV shows, we're conditioned to see that, and then the more wide aspect ratio, like a 122 to 1, is a much more cinematic experience. So this movie, I felt like watching it in the theater, I'm missing out if I see it any other way. It covers the entire wall, and seeing it on as big of a screen as big of a screen as I did, like I was transported somewhere. Watching this like on TV should be a crime, because that's not the way you watch this. It is so expertly crafted. This is made for the big screen, and I'm so happy that I had that experience. It was like getting whisked away to another world. I guess in terms of issues of the movie, the love story between Sally Hawkins and the fishman, it's not on screen enough for my liking. I wish, because the stuff we do get is really sweet, and like we see their bond growing. But when she starts singing that song, I don't really believe that she just doesn't understand. Like, I love this thing so much. I don't quite get that, and I wish, like, if we got more of that, it might have worked better. Because I mean, it's almost like the Beauty and the Beast thing, where there's like a montage and a few scenes where they're talking to each other, and then they love each other. We get more of it here, but I did want to see more of the romance. And I think just calling this a romance movie is a bit of a disingenuous statement, because it's about Richard Jenkins, it's about Octavia Spencer, it's about Michael Stuhlbarg, and I like how these characters come together to do something, and they're all outsiders in some way, and as a result, they come together with a plan to do something for this fishman that is the culmination of all of their pent up frustrations of being in some way like kind of marginalized or sidelined. In terms of character actor stuff, Michael Stuhlbarg has something to do. Yes. Last year he was in Miss Sloane. Last year he was in Doctor Strange, and last year he was in. Um, oh no, what else was he in? Michael Stuhlbarg. Do I got any commenters? Oh, okay. One second. Kelly Jones says, "Where does the production of The Shape of Water compare to the production of Crimson Peak?" Crimson Peak looks incredible. Um, but I think the production here is better. It's clearly a smaller budget. It's not as sweeping, but it is a more intimate story, so it's a lot more believable. Like, so it's believable to see this as of good as a production. But I think the production works better because the images and the sets and everything that is constructed here resonated more emotionally to me. There's a very long shot where we're introduced to a lab facility where it's going around. It's a really long shot of just one room, and it's going from person to person, and then we see the vat with the little tank that the fisherman's being held in, and it's gorgeous. And that it's stuff like that. It resonated with me more on an emotional level than Crimson Peak did, which I thought looked great and was visceral, but I think the emotional impact of that story was and didn't quite rise to the occasion to fulfill that emotional need that the story might have been lacking. I got to look at what Michael Stuhlbarg was in last year because he was thoroughly wasted, if you ask me. We only get so much Michael Stuhlbarg in 1 year, and we're going to waste him on Doctor Strange. I like Doctor Strange, but he had nothing to do in that movie. He was in Miss Sloane, Doctor Strange, and something else. This is making for a terrible video, and I apologize, but this is also the problem with live. Doggone it, I lost it. Either way, Michael Stuhlbarg. We only get so much of him a year, and he was great here. Uh, he's very much Michael Stuhlbarg. Oh, he was also in Trumbo, or was that 2015? Whatever. I'm sorry. This is a disaster. So Michael Stuhlbarg is like my favorite character actor, and Michael Shannon is probably the most popular character actor at the time being. And there is a scene, there are a couple of scenes actually, where Michael Stuhlbarg and Michael Shannon get a shared dialogue, and it was so great. Like two of the best character actors today, face to face. It was like, oh, I was cinephiling out, if you will. And Richard Jenkins here is so good. I think the Academy is in a real pickle this year in terms of best supporting actor, because I mean I was really pulling for Patrick Stewart, but it's looking like he's not even going to get a nomination this year. But for Logan, and I think he should get nominated. But should he win compared to Sam Rockwell in Three Billboards and Richard Jenkins here? And I haven't even seen Willem Dafoe in the Florida Project, who was the favorite to win. Probably not. So I love Willem Dafoe. I'm going to see the Florida Project one of these days, and I might do a live video on it. Michael Stuhlbarg. Oh, apparently he was in Fargo, the TV show. I want to watch that. He was in Arrival. That's right. He was in Arrival, where he was thoroughly wasted last year. The thing Michael Stuhlbarg had the most in all the three movies he was in last year. The thing he had the stuff he had the most to do in was in Miss Sloane, which was the weakest of the three movies he was in. But he was still really good in that movie. Like I said, I'd give this movie, The Shape of Water, like an 8 out of 10. It's really good. This is probably going to be something that over time I like more and more. The more and more I watch it, the more and more it will resonate with me. For right now, like all three of these movies I reviewed today are in my top 10 of the year. I'm thoroughly impressed by this year end. I'm thoroughly impressed by this year period. yeah, great stuff here. I'd recommend checking out all of these. Everyone's going to watch Last Jedi. A lot of people dislike it. That's okay. But Three Billboards, I think a lot of people will like, and I think The Shape of Water is something that will resonate with a lot of people. So yeah, that's really all I have to offer today. Thank you all very much for watching. I am Connor Nielsen, and until next time,